Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time we're diving deep into positioning, the battle for your mind,
Oh, yeah.
that marketing classic by Ries and Jack Trout.
Yeah,
You've probably at least heard of this one. It's the book about how perception shapes success even more than the actual product or service itself.
Right,
But we're not just talking about businesses today in this deep dive.
right.
We're going to look at how the principles of positioning
Yeah.
can actually apply to your own life and your own career.
Yeah, this is really what's so interesting about this book, I think, is that they tap into something really fundamental about the way the human mind works, right?
Yeah.
We are just bombarded with
Yeah.
information all the time, every day, so much of it that our brains almost need like a defense mechanism.
That's like overload.
It is total overload. Yeah. And so,
Too much.
yeah, basically our minds are only going to really accept messages that kind of
It fit in.
fit in with what we already know and what we've already experienced.
Right, so you have to break through that noise somehow.
Yeah.
So the book talks about being first,
Mm-hmm.
being like the first brand to occupy a specific spot in someone's mind.
Right, to be first.
But how do you become first when everything's already been done before?
That's the thing. You don't necessarily have to be the first to actually do something.
Right,
You just have to be the first to own a specific category
to really own it.
or a specific frame of reference, right?
Okay,
So think about Tesla, for example.
okay.
They weren't the first company to make electric cars, but they were the first to really position them as these desirable
Luxury.
high performance vehicles. Yeah, luxury.
Right.
And that's what made them stand out.
So you create your own category instead of trying to compete in one that's already...
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is what's so powerful about it is that this is a key takeaway for anyone, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to stand out, whether you're an individual building a personal brand or a company launching a new business, or even if you're just trying to get your ideas heard at work. You got to find a way to
A unique angle.
own a unique space.
So the book also talks about these ladders in the mind.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was kind of a strange,
Yeah, it's a little abstract.
abstract concept.
So think about it this way. For every product or service that you use,
Yeah.
you probably have a mental ranking in your head.
Like my favorite.
Yeah.
At the top.
Of brands.
Yeah.
Let's say it's coffee.
Okay.
So you probably have your favorite coffee brand at the top.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Starbucks. Maybe it's some local roaster. Maybe it's just the brand that your parents always bought, right? And then there's the second best, and then it goes all the way down. So
That's your coffee ladder.
that's your coffee ladder in your mind.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you saying positioning is about climbing that ladder?
It is in a way. Yeah, it's figuring out,
And-
okay, where am I on this ladder?
Mm-hmm.
And what does the competition look like? And how do I differentiate myself so that I can
Right.
climb up?
But how do you actually do that?
Well, the book uses this really interesting example
No.
of Avis, the rental car company.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We try harder.
They basically admitted,
That they're number two.
yeah, we're number two.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Right, they embraced it.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating about that is that they actually gained market share by doing that.
But just admitting it.
Yeah, because they were tapping into
The underdog.
the underdog.
Everyone loves an underdog.
Everyone loves an underdog, right? And they basically said hey, we know we're not number one,
We're trying.
but we're going to try harder for you, the customer, and it worked brilliantly.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
So it's not always about being at the very top. It's about finding
Right.
where you fit in and
Yeah.
owning that and shining there.
Exactly. And that actually leads really well into the next point because a big part of that is having a strong brand name.
Right.
Your name is that first impression that you make, right? And it needs to instantly communicate what you're all about. So think about FedEx.
Right.
It tells you everything you need to know in just 2 syllables.
It's your reliability.
Boom! You get it.
Yeah.
And sometimes companies will even change their names to reposition themselves.
Totally.
A really good example of this is Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh, right.
They became KFC.
They dropped the fry.
Yeah, to get away from that.
Because everyone's like, yeah, that fried
Fancier these days.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was a risky move, but it can be incredibly effective if you do it right. And it's interesting to think about it. Have you ever considered changing your own name or nickname to project a different image?
You know what? I actually did. I went by a totally different nickname in high school.
Really?
I thought it sounded cooler back then. And looking back, I guess I was kind of
You were positioning yourself.
yeah, within my peer group without even realizing it.
It's so interesting how these principles are at play even in our personal lives. whether we realize it or not.
I love it.
And that's part of what makes this book so applicable.
So we've talked about how companies use this.
Yeah.
But what are some of the traps that people fall into when they're trying to position themselves?
Oh, yeah. There are definitely some tracks that people fall into.
Either professionally
Yeah.
or even personally.
The book talks about the line extension trap. Have you heard of this one?
I'm not sure. Fill me in.
So this is what happens when a brand tries to capitalize on its success by extending its name to way too many products or
Right.
product categories.
Like more products, more money.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Right. You would think, right.
But
But it can backfire
how so?
because it can dilute the brand's core positioning,
Okay.
right? It muddles the message and it weakens that association with what that original product was.
So it's like if you're known for like luxury cars
Yes.
and then all of a sudden you start making like budget hatchbacks.
Exactly. Or like imagine a high-end fashion designer all of a sudden launches a line of discount clothing at like Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be like, what?
Totally ruin the brand.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
would damage the reputation for exclusivity and craftsmanship. And the book uses the example of Milk Duds, which I love.
I love Milk Duds.
Right, so good. They were known for that chewy caramel.
That chewy caramel.
And then all of a sudden they introduce peanut butter and chocolate-covered raisins under the same brand name.
Interesting.
And it just didn't work.
It didn't work.
Because it strayed too far from what they were known for.
So interesting.
So, you know, the takeaway here is that line extensions, they can be dangerous if they don't align with the brand's core positioning. And this is a valuable lesson not just for businesses, but for anyone building a personal brand, too.
Don't try to be everything.
Exactly. You don't want to be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Right. Focus your energy.
Be known for something specific.
So what about when you're not the first in a category? Can you still position yourself against someone who's already like...
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where repositioning comes in.
Yep.
You can actually target a competitor's weakness and highlight your own strength in that area. So you're basically shifting the...
Changing the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So like a really great example of this is the Cola Wars.
Oh, yeah.
For years, Pepsi positioned themselves as like the choice of a new generation.
Right.
They were subtly implying that Coke was like old and outdated.
It's the old people drink.
Yeah, basically.
That's so funny.
Right? They made themselves the young and hip alternative.
So they took a weakness
Yeah,
and flipped it.
they flipped it.
That's so smart.
So we've talked about products and companies and personal branding.
You know, this is blowing my mind.
But the book actually takes it even further.
It does.
And they talk about positioning countries.
What?
Yeah, it's really cool. So they use Belgium as an example. So, you know, most people don't really think of Belgium as a top tourist destination,
Right.
but they've done a really clever job of leveraging their reputation for chocolate.
Ooh, I do like Belgian chocolate.
Right, and beer.
Yeah.
Things that people already have positive associations with.
Right.
So they've repositioned themselves as a haven for like foodies and beer lovers.
So smart.
So it just goes to show that positioning can be applied to almost anything.
Wow.
You're not limited to like tangible products or services.
So why is all this so important?
It's important because once you understand positioning, it gives you the power to make conscious choices about how you are perceived by the world.
So instead of just accepting information, you can shape it.
You can shape it. Yeah.
I like that.
It's empowering.
So how can people apply this in their own lives?
Well, I think one of the most impactful takeaways is that in this world where we have too much information coming at us all the time, it's important to really focus your message. You can't be everything to everyone. You'll just get lost in the noise. You know, it's like that old saying, jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
So instead of trying to be good at everything, figure out what your core strength is.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that makes you stand out
Right.
and really hammer that message home?
Okay.
So if you're trying to build a career, for example,
Yeah.
you know, maybe you shouldn't be trying to be a generalist.
Okay.
It's better to really specialize and become an expert in a very specific
Like a niche.
niche. Exactly. That's how you become truly valuable.
Okay.
Because think about it.
Yeah.
You know, if you need brain surgery, you don't want a doctor who does a little bit of everything.
You want the expert.
You want the best brain surgeon in the world.
Right. The specialist.
Right.
And that makes sense for like personal branding too, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to have this sort of generic,
Right.
perfect image.
You want to highlight a specific passion or expertise.
Okay. So stand out, don't blend in.
Exactly.
I like that.
And that brings us to another key point from positioning, which is that you don't always have to be the absolute best.
Really?
You just have to be perceived as the best in that category.
So it's about perception, not necessarily.
Exactly. Remember those mental ladders we were talking about?
Yeah, the coffee ladder.
Yeah, you can be on like a lower rung
Okay.
of a really prestigious ladder and still be more successful than someone who's at the top of like a less desirable one.
So it's picking the right ladder to climb.
It's all about choosing the right battleground.
So much of success is about perception.
It really is, and that's why this book is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it gives you this framework for understanding how people are making decisions.
Mhm.
You know, it's strategic communication.
So how do we actually, like, apply all of this?
So let's say you're feeling kind of stuck in your current job.
Okay.
Maybe you're really skilled, you're working hard,
Yeah.
but you're just not getting the recognition you deserve or the opportunities you want.
Okay, I've been there.
You know, so maybe it's time to reposition yourself within your company or within your industry.
Okay, so be proactive.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just like complaining or waiting for things to change.
Just take control.
Look for ways to highlight your unique skills. Make yourself indispensable.
Highlight those skills.
Yeah, become the go-to person for that specific thing.
So you're saying I should find a need within my organization and then position myself as the solution.
Exactly.
Be the answer.
Yes.
That's really smart.
And that might involve learning some new skills, networking with the right people, maybe even creating your own opportunities.
That's a lot more strategic than what I've been doing.
It is a more proactive approach.
What about if you're not, like, in the corporate world?
Yeah.
Like if you're a freelancer or an entrepreneur?
And the principles are still the same.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're a freelancer, for example, you need to define your niche.
Right.
And you have to articulate your unique value proposition to your potential clients.
So what makes you different?
Yeah. What makes you stand out from the competition? Right.
Why should they choose you over someone else?
It's like you're writing a brand statement
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah, and it needs to really connect with their needs and desires.
Yeah.
Not just list off a bunch of skills that you have.
Right.
It's got to be more emotional.
This reminds me of what they said in the book about the no-name trap.
Yeah.
They talk about how it's so important to have a really memorable name that communicates what you're about.
Exactly. Like a generic name makes it hard for people to remember you and what you stand for.
Like, would Google be as big as it is
Right.
if it was called, like, Search Engine Inc.?
No way.
No.
A strong name is like a shortcut to recognition.
Right. So we talked about repositioning,
Yeah.
but sometimes it doesn't mean you have to, like, completely reinvent yourself, right?
No, not at all. Sometimes it's just about like tweaking your image,
Okay.
emphasizing different aspects of your skill set.
So, like, actors who go from comedy to drama?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not changing who they are. They're just showing a different side of themselves.
Yeah.
Like when Tom Hanks went from Big and Splash to like
Yes.
Forrest Gump and Philadelphia.
Exactly. He was like, hey,
I could do serious stuff.
I can do it all.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can do this with your career, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, you might need to highlight different skills depending on what kind of job you're applying for or what kind of clients you're trying to attract.
Okay, so be adaptable.
Yeah. Present the most relevant version of yourself.
It's like curating your personal highlight reel.
That is a perfect analogy. And this actually brings us to another really important point that Ries and Trout make, which is that positioning is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
So you don't just set it and forget it.
No, you have to constantly be evaluating and adjusting.
Because the world changes.
The world changes, people's perceptions change.
And you change.
And you change,
It's
exactly.
like tending a garden, right? You have to
Wow,
constantly
I love that analogy.
weed, prune, nurture it.
Yeah, you got to keep it thriving.
Speaking of pitfalls in the garden, the book talks about this free ride trap.
Oh, yes, the free ride trap. This is when smaller companies will try to ride the coattails of bigger, more established names.
Okay, like when you see a generic brand
Exactly.
that looks just like the name brand.
They're trying to fool you
Right.
into thinking that they're the same thing.
And you're like, wait a minute.
But it can backfire
How so?
because you're basically admitting that you're not original
Okay.
and that you're relying on someone else's reputation instead of building your own.
So focus on your own thing.
Yeah, carve out your unique space, even if it takes a little bit longer.
Okay.
Because positioning is all about differentiation.
Right.
You have to offer something unique, and that starts with being true to yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today. Mental ladders, brand names, repositioning all these traps to avoid.
It's a lot.
But it seems like positioning is a really powerful framework for understanding how the world sees us and how we can kind of shape that.
It really can change how you think about yourself and your career and your place in the world.
Yeah, it's about taking control of your story.
Yes, exactly. And making sure your message is resonating with the right people.
My mind is buzzing, I have to say.
It's a lot to think about.
Before we wrap up, is there a final thought-provoking question we can leave our listeners with?
Let me think about that. How about this? What if instead of trying to climb an existing ladder,
Yeah.
you created a new one altogether?
Yeah.
What unique value or perspective could you bring to the table that no one else is really owning right now?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Instead of competing where it's already crowded,
Yeah.
you make your own space.
You create your own game.
I like that.
It's about challenging the status quo, right?
Yeah.
And it takes vision and courage and a deep understanding of how to position yourself.
Yeah.
But the rewards can be huge.
So like in the early days of the internet,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
people who saw the potential there and created like these whole new categories,
Yeah.
like online bookstores or social media,
Yeah.
they were the ones who really...
They won
Oh.
because they weren't just playing the game. They were changing the rules.
So it's not just about finding your niche, it's about
creating it.
creating it. Whoa!
Yeah.
I'm getting all kinds of ideas now.
That's what I love about this book. It's
Yeah.
a real mindset shift.
You go from reactive to proactive.
Yeah.
You're not waiting around.
You're making things happen.
You're in control.
You're the one in the driver's seat.
This has been so interesting.
Yeah.
It's given me so much to think about. Like, I have a whole new way of looking at my career and my life.
That's the beauty of this book.
Yeah.
It's not just about marketing. It's about understanding how people think and make decisions.
Once you get that,
Yeah.
you can use it anywhere.
Anywhere.
It's like a secret weapon.
In a way, yeah, but it's not about manipulating people. It's about being authentic and communicating effectively.
So align your message with your values.
Yeah, and with your goals.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into positioning.
Yeah.
But if you're listening and you want to learn more,
Definitely check out the full book.
yeah, it's a classic by Ries and Jack Trout.
It's a must-read.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of positioning.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
Yeah. And remember, it's not just about what you do.
It's about how you position yourself.
Exactly.
See you in the next deep dive.
Bye, everyone.